The morning sunlight over Brookdale was the kind that made the town look kinder than it really was. Soft gold on brick storefronts, a church bell rolling over sleepy streets, wind-stirring flags above the courthouse steps. Maya Ellis, 32 weeks pregnant and counting each careful breath, eased her silver sedan to the curb in front of Roswell Women's Clinic. She checked the time, then the sticky note on her dashboard. Glucose screen, 1040. Ask about back pain. Hydrate. A tidy list for a messy season. Okay, little comet, she murmured, palm on her belly. In, out, we've got this. Her husband, Jordan Ellis, had wanted to come. He wanted to come to everything lately. Appointments, cravings-fueled grocery runs, late-night kicks that felt like distant drum beats. But Jordan was in the field this week, which was the euphemism he used when bureau silence swallowed the details. He worked violent crimes. He didn't bring that home. He brought flowers when he could, and jokes when she needed them, and faith as steady as a lighthouse. I'll call you at lunch, he'd said at dawn, rushing out, tie crooked, eyes bright. Promise. Maya parked, reached for her tote, and caught the flash of a patrol car mirror in the corner of her eye. The cruiser had been idling across the street since she'd pulled onto Roswell. No siren, no flashers, just presence. She glanced again, that prickle along the skin that every black woman in America knows by muscle memory. Don't make it a thing, Maya. Clipboard, water bottle, insurance card, in and out. She stepped out, locking the car. A heavy voice cut across the sidewalk. Hey, ma'am, you there? Stop. Maya turned. The officer was tall and broad, mid-40s, buzz-cut gray at the edges, uniform pressed within an inch of its life. His nameplate said, Bridges. His eyes said he'd decided something about her the minute she turned her wheel. Yes, officer? Maya asked, keeping her voice even. License and registration. I'm about to walk into my prenatal appointment, she said carefully. Is there a problem with my parking? I said license and registration. He held out a palm. Now, her breath caught. The clinic entrance was just 20 feet away, a nurse visible through the glass flipping a chart. Maya reached slowly into her tote and produced her wallet. Do you mind telling me what this is about? You rolled through a stop sign on Sycamore. Sloppy driving. Happens when you're distracted. I didn't roll through anything, and even if I had, a warning would be, License, he repeated, louder. The nurse inside glanced up again, sensing the tone. Maya handed over her license. He didn't ask for registration. His eyes had fixed on the name. Ellis. You live over on Telfair? Yes. Where you headed after this? Home. Sir, my appointment. Car keys. He wiggled his fingers impatiently. Maya's heartbeat pressed against her ribs. Why would you need my keys? He stepped closer, so close she caught the scent of coffee gone sour. Because I asked, and because I have reason to believe you're operating a vehicle with expired insurance. Her mouth opened, closed. Their policy renewed last month. Jordan handled it. It's not expired. We'll see. He stepped to the driver's door and tried the handle. Locked. Keys, he said again, jaw tight. Officer, I'm pregnant. I need to sit down. If there's a paperwork issue, I can call my husband and... Don't reach for your phone. It was loud enough that two passers-by slowed. The nurse disappeared from the window, and a moment later the clinic door cracked open. Ma'am, are you okay? She called. Maya turned toward the voice, and that was apparently the wrong move. Bridges reached for her wrist, not roughly but not gently either, and spun her toward the hood of her car. Her belly grazed metal and she sucked in air, sudden heat behind her eyes. Please, stop! I'm not resisting. I'm pregnant. Then stop making me repeat myself, he said, snapping a cuff around her right wrist. The cold steel shocked the skin. Hands behind your back. Panic whipped through her like wind. Not like this. Please not like this. Officer, please, the baby. A woman on the sidewalk said, Hey, take it easy. She's pregnant. Another voice. I'm recording this. Phones appeared, that modern instinct to bear witness and pray it helps. Bridges' jaw flexed. Back up, he barked without looking at them. Into his radio he said, Unit 12, 1038 at Roswell Clinic, send backup. Possible false documents, subject non-compliant. Maya's mind reeled. False documents? She swallowed. Her phone. She needed to call Jordan. Her left hand was free. She moved slowly, deliberately. Officer, I'm going to take out my phone to call my... Don't! He snapped and seized her left wrist. The second cuff bit down. Pressure built behind her eyes until the street swam. "Sir," the nurse said, stepping fully onto the sidewalk now, hands raised, voice steady but trembling. "She's a patient of ours. She's 32 weeks. Please let her sit. I can bring out a wheelchair." Bridges shot her a glare. "Back inside." "She could faint," the nurse insisted. "Her blood sugar—" "Inside," he repeated, and the nurse retreated slowly, horror bright on her face. Maya focused on the fixed points she could control. In, out. Count the breaths. Think of Jordan's voice. Think of our baby's heartbeat on that little gray screen. She pressed her cheek to cool metal and spoke softly, to the officer, but also to the crowd, to the phone cameras, to anyone who would listen. "I am not a threat. I am not resisting. I am asking to sit. I am pregnant." For the first time, a flicker of doubt crossed his face. It lasted a heartbeat, then vanished into practiced arrogance. He pulled her back from the hood and guided her, dragged her, toward the cruiser. A woman gasped. A man swore under his breath. Someone shouted, "Badge number!" Bridges ignored them, opened the back door, and moved to seat her. Maya's abdomen tightened, a band of pressure that made the edges of the world go bright, then dim. Not now, not a contraction, just stress. She fought for breath. "Sir," she said, voice wobbling, "my husband is law enforcement. Just let me call him. He can clear this up." Bridges snorted. "Sure he is." From across the street, a black SUV swung to a stop in a no-parking zone. The driver's door flew open so hard it bounced. A man in a navy suit stepped out, tie askew, eyes blazing. He moved like a storm breaking, fast, focused, silent in a way that made space fold around him. He flashed past the clinic door, past the ring of phones, past the gasp that seemed to ripple through the crowd as he lifted a leather case and snapped it open. "Federal Bureau of Investigation," he said, voice iron flat, badge catching the sun. "Special Agent Jordan Ellis, step away from my wife." For one suspended second, the whole street held its breath. The church bell silenced mid-echo, flags frozen mid-flutter, the crowd's murmur collapsing into nothing. Bridges stared at the shield, then at Jordan's eyes, and a small involuntary twitch broke the certainty in his face. Maya closed her eyes, the pressure easing just enough to let air in. "You promised you'd call at lunch," she whispered, half a sob, half a laugh. Jordan didn't look away from the officer. "Change of plans," he said, and the steadiness in his voice was the first solid ground she'd felt in minutes. "Cuffs off, now!" Officer Bridges froze, one hand still gripping Maya's elbow, the other hovering near his duty belt. His eyes flicked between the FBI credentials and Jordan Ellis's face. The crowd pressed closer, cameras raised high, voices like static building in the winter air. "Step away from her," Jordan repeated, his tone controlled but sharp enough to cut steel. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't have to. Authority radiated from him like heat off asphalt in July. Bridges swallowed hard. "Sir, I had probable cause. She was non-compliant." Jordan's jaw set. "Non-compliant? She's pregnant 32 weeks on her way into a medical appointment, and you've cuffed her in public like a criminal." He stepped forward slowly, deliberately, closing the space between them. "Those cuffs come off. Right, now." Maya kept her cheek pressed against the cool window of the squad car. The pressure in her chest eased just enough to breathe again. The sight of Jordan, shoulders squared, badge gleaming, felt like oxygen. But she could also feel the tremor in her own legs, the knot tightening in her abdomen. Bridges glanced nervously at the crowd. Phones were everywhere, lenses glinting like 1,000 small suns. Every second was being recorded, streamed, judged. His bravado faltered. Still, pride clawed at him, that instinct to prove he wasn't wrong. "I was ensuring public safety," he muttered. Jordan leaned closer, voice low, meant only for him. "You're ensuring a lawsuit and a career-ending review. Do you want me to call your chief, or do you want to do the smart thing and unlock her wrists?" The silence stretched. A woman in the crowd shouted, "Take the cuffs off!" Another added, "She didn't do anything." Finally, Bridges fumbled for his key. With jerky hands, he unlocked one cuff, then the other. The steel fell away from Maya's wrists with a small metallic clink that seemed louder than the church bells. She pulled her arms close, cradling her belly instinctively. Jordan slid his hand beneath her elbow, steadying her. "Easy, baby. I've got you." Her voice wavered, but she managed. I told him I wasn't resisting." "I know." Jordan said softly. His hand didn't leave her arm. His body angled between her and the officer as though shielding her from even the air. Bridges straightened, defensive now. You can't just override me in the field. I had cause. Jordan turned on him, eyes sharp enough to make the officer flinch. You had bias, not cause. And now you're going to stand here and explain on camera why you thought it was appropriate to handcuff a pregnant woman at a clinic for a non-existent traffic violation. The crowd murmured approval. A teenager held his phone higher, saying loudly, "World's watching, officer." Bridges' mouth opened, closed. His authority drained away with each camera shutter click. He muttered, "This isn't over," and stepped back toward his cruiser, face red. Jordan didn't move until the officer was behind the wheel and driving away, tires crunching against the curb. Only then did he turn fully to Maya. "You okay?" His hand cupped her cheek gently, thumb brushing away the faint trace of tears. I think so." She drew a shaky breath. "It just happened so fast. He wouldn't listen." "I know." His voice softened, but the storm in his eyes hadn't passed. "But he'll listen now. They all will." The nurse from the clinic rushed out, pushing a wheelchair. "Mrs. Ellis, please, come inside. We need to check your vitals." Maya started to shake her head, but Jordan guided her down gently. "Let them," he whispered. "For you. For the baby." As she sat, applause broke out from the bystanders. It wasn't loud, but it was steady, a ripple of solidarity. Someone called, "We've got your back!" Another shouted, "Respect her!" Maya's throat tightened. Strangers, witnesses, proof that she wasn't invisible. Inside the clinic, nurses swarmed. Blood pressure cuff, water, gentle voices urging her to breathe. Jordan stayed at her side, hand anchored to hers, his eyes never leaving her. Her blood pressure was elevated but steady. The tightening in her abdomen eased after 10 minutes of rest. Relief passed through her like cool water. Jordan finally exhaled, leaning close. "I almost didn't make it in time. One of the guys at the bureau called me. Someone in the crowd live-streamed it. My phone blew up." Maya blinked. "That's how you knew?" He nodded. "I was in the middle of an interview, dropped everything and drove straight here." You looked like a storm," she said faintly. He managed the smallest smile. "For you, always." Back in the waiting room, the nurse pressed a glass of water into her hand. Jordan stepped aside to call his supervisor, his voice clipped and professional. "Unit involved, badge number Bridges, Brookdale PD, incident on video. Yes, I'll file a full report. And yes, it's personal." When he returned, his expression was calmer, but his jaw remained tight. "They'll investigate him," Jordan said quietly. "Internal affairs. And the bureau's already flagged it. He won't get away with this." Maya nodded slowly, the weight of exhaustion pressing down. I don't want this to hurt the baby. That's all I care about." Jordan knelt beside her chair, taking both her hands in his. "And all I care about is you. Both of you. Whatever happens next, we face it together." The words settled like armor around her heart. She drew a long breath, steady for the first time since the cuffs clicked. Outside, the clinic buzzed with murmurs, phones still recording, the story already racing through the town. But inside, for one fragile moment, Maya felt safe. The video hit the internet before Maya had even left her appointment. Within hours, it was everywhere. On local news, Twitter threads, Facebook feeds, and national outlets hungry for a headline. Pregnant woman cuffed at clinic. FBI agent confronts Brookdale officer. Respect denied, respect demanded. Clips showed Bridges forcing Maya onto the hood of her car, her voice shaking as she pleaded, "I am not a threat. I am pregnant." Then came the moment Jordan stepped from the SUV, badge flashing, voice iron steady. "Step away from my wife." It played on repeat, a loop that stirred outrage and awe in equal measure. By evening, news vans were parked outside Carter Memorial Hospital, where Maya had been transferred for monitoring. She sat propped on crisp white sheets, fetal monitor tracing steady heartbeats, her wrists still marked faintly from the cuffs. Jordan sat at her bedside, suit jacket draped over the chair, phone buzzing every few minutes with calls from bureau contacts. "They're asking for statements," he said quietly, glancing at the glowing screen. "The bureau wants me to hold off until their press office drafts something." Maya rubbed her temple. "Statements? Jordan, I just want to be home. I don't want to be on the news." His gaze softened. "I know, but the genie's out of the bottle. Everyone saw it. Her eyes welled. I didn't ask to be a symbol. I just wanted to see my doctor. Jordan squeezed her hand gently. You don't have to be a symbol. You just have to be you. The rest, we'll navigate together. Meanwhile, across town, Officer Bridges sat in his squad car outside the station, sweating under the dim glow of the dashboard. His phone buzzed with texts from colleagues, half supportive, half condemning. Man, they're making you look like a monster. Hang in there, Bridges. Don't let the media spin it. IA's gonna eat you alive. He cursed under his breath. He told himself he'd acted by the book, that her attitude had triggered suspicion. But deep down, doubt gnawed. His chief had already called him in. Internal Affairs was waiting. The next morning, Brookdale split in two. At the diner near Main Street, an older man jabbed a finger at the TV. That officer was doing his job. People need to comply, pregnant or not. Across the room, a college student shot back. She was complying. He cuffed her for nothing. If her husband hadn't shown up, arguments sparked at coffee shops, in grocery store lines, even in church basements. Some defended Bridges as a lawman under pressure. Most condemned him as the face of systemic bias. Amanda Torres, a local journalist, saw the divide and knew it was bigger than Brookdale. She pitched the story to her editor. Pregnant woman arrested without cause. FBI husband intervenes. The editor greenlit it instantly. Amanda reached out to Maya that afternoon. Mrs. Ellis, I know you're tired, but your story matters. People need to hear it from you, not just from a viral clip. Maya hesitated, glancing at Jordan. He nodded slowly. Your voice, your choice, he said. After a long pause, Maya agreed. Okay, but it has to be about what happened, not about making me a martyr. That night, Amanda's article went live. She described Maya's calm compliance, the officer's escalating aggression, and the moment the FBI badge turned humiliation into accountability. She ended with Maya's own words. I am not a threat. I am pregnant. Respect shouldn't depend on who your husband is. The line spread like wildfire. By morning, it was quoted on news tickers and trending hashtags. But the storm had only begun. Bridges filed his own report, claiming Maya had been evasive, that she had reached for her phone in a threatening way, that he feared she might flee. The police union echoed his defense, releasing a statement. Our officer acted within his training under uncertain circumstances. Jordan read the statement aloud at the kitchen table, fury flashing in his eyes. Training? He calls shoving a pregnant woman against a car training? Maya placed a hand on his arm. They're protecting their own. They always do. But the truth is on video. Jordan exhaled slowly, forcing calm. Then the truth will win. It has to. At the bureau, Jordan's supervisor called him in. You did the right thing, Ellis, but this is high profile now. Tread carefully. They'll try to spin you as the hot-headed husband who overstepped. Jordan kept his voice steady. I wasn't just a husband. I was an agent watching an abuse of power. Off-duty or not, that badge means something. The supervisor studied him, then nodded. Then make sure it continues to. The following weekend, Brookdale held its first protest. Hundreds gathered outside the courthouse, holding signs, respect her. Justice for Maya. Pregnancy is not probable cause. Maya watched from her living room window as the march passed their street. Jordan stood behind her, hand on her shoulder. Does it scare you? He asked quietly. Yes, she admitted. But it also gives me hope. As the crowd's chants echoed through the night, the battle lines sharpened. It was no longer just about one officer, one woman, or one arrest. It was about a town, a system, and the question that hung heavy in every conversation. Would justice finally answer? The summons arrived on a rainy Thursday morning. A plain white envelope slid through the Ellis mailbox, stamped with the seal of Brookdale's Civilian Oversight Committee. Inside was a formal notice. Mrs. Maya Ellis is requested to testify at the upcoming public hearing regarding Officer Bridges' conduct. Maya sat at the kitchen table, the paper trembling in her hands. Her tea had gone cold. Across from her, Jordan scanned the letter, jaw tight. You don't have to do this, he said. They've got the video, the witnesses. You shouldn't be forced to relive it in front of cameras. Maya rubbed her belly, where the baby shifted gently under her palm. If I don't speak, people will twist it. Bridges already filed his version. His union is defending him. If I stay silent, they'll say I had something to hide. Jordan's hand covered hers. Then I'll be there every second. The hearing was scheduled for the following Monday in the Brookdale courthouse. Word spread quickly. Posters went up downtown. Demand accountability. Stand with Maya. Local news stations ran countdown segments. Bridges' defenders called it a witch hunt, while supporters of Maya saw it as overdue justice. On the morning of the hearing, the courthouse steps were flooded. Protesters held signs, umbrellas bobbing in the drizzle. Some chanted Maya's now famous words, "I am not a threat. I am pregnant." Others shouted at counter-protesters who insisted Bridges was just doing his job. Inside, security was tight. Officers lined the hallways, eyes sharp. Jordan walked beside Maya, one hand steady at the small of her back, the other carrying a slim folder. Reporters swarmed, shouting questions. "Maya, how are you feeling today? Do you think justice will be served? Jordan, are you acting as her husband or as an FBI agent?" Jordan ignored them all, shielding Maya as they entered the chamber. The room buzzed with tension. At the front sat the oversight committee, 5 members, diverse in age and background. Before them, a long table for witnesses. To one side, Bridges and his union attorney. To the other, Maya, with Jordan at her side. Committee Chairwoman Ramirez adjusted her glasses and spoke. "This hearing is to determine whether Officer Bridges acted in violation of protocol and civil rights during the arrest of Mrs. Maya Ellis on November 12th. We remind all parties this is a public proceeding." Bridges sat stiff, chin high. His attorney leaned in and whispered to him. Across the aisle, Maya took a breath that seemed to draw every eye in the room. Her testimony began quietly. She described pulling up to the clinic, seeing the patrol car, hearing the first demand for her license. Her voice wavered as she recounted being pressed against the hood, the cold metal biting into her belly. "I told him I was not resisting," she said, tears welling. "I told him I was pregnant, but he didn't stop. He cuffed me anyway, and all I could think was, please don't let this hurt my baby." The room was silent except for the soft scratching of pens. Cameras clicked. Even some of the officers lining the wall shifted uneasily. Jordan squeezed her hand under the table. Next, the committee played the viral video on a large screen. Gasps rippled through the chamber as the footage showed Bridges jerking Maya's wrist, her voice breaking, her plea echoing, "I am pregnant." Then the entrance of Jordan, badge flashing, voice cutting like steel. "Step away from my wife." The committee paused the video. Chairwoman Ramirez turned to Bridges. "Officer, do you dispute the accuracy of this footage?" Bridges cleared his throat. "I acted on training. Her movements were unpredictable. I feared for public safety." A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. "Unpredictable?" Ramirez pressed. "A woman visibly pregnant, unarmed, surrounded by witnesses?" Bridges shifted in his seat. His attorney jumped in. "My client followed protocol under perceived threat. It is not the officer's fault if bystanders misinterpret." Jordan leaned forward, voice steady. "With all respect, that's not protocol. That's prejudice dressed as procedure." The chamber erupted in whispers. Ramirez banged her gavel. "Order!" Finally, Maya finished with a quiet plea. "I'm not here because my husband is FBI. I'm here because no woman, no mother-to-be should be treated like a criminal for simply existing. If Jordan hadn't arrived, I don't know what would have happened. Respect shouldn't depend on who you're married to. It should be given because we're human." Her words hung in the air, heavy as stone. After hours of testimony, Ramirez announced the committee would deliberate and issue findings within 2 weeks. Reporters rushed out to file stories. Protesters outside roared as Maya and Jordan exited the courthouse. A young girl in the crowd held up a handmade sign, "Respect her." Maya's throat tightened as she smiled faintly at the child. That night, back at home, Maya collapsed onto the couch, exhaustion pulling at every muscle. Jordan sat beside her, pulling her feet into his lap. "You were incredible," he said softly. "I was terrified," she admitted. "That's what makes it incredible." She closed her eyes, leaning against him. The baby kicked once, strong and insistent, as though echoing his words. For the first time since that day on the clinic sidewalk, Maya felt like maybe, just maybe, justice could find its way through the storm. 2 weeks stretched long in the Ellis household. Each day brought new headlines, new arguments on TV, new calls from reporters. Maya tried to tune them out, focusing on her breathing exercises and the steady rhythm of her baby's kicks, but the noise was relentless. One morning, as she made oatmeal in the kitchen, The news anchor's voice from the living room caught her ear. Supporters of Officer Bridges staged a rally today, calling the Oversight Committee hearing a political stunt. The officer's attorney insists his client is being vilified by biased media. Meanwhile, activists continue to demand accountability for the treatment of Mrs. Maya Ellis, who is 8 months pregnant. Maya gripped the counter, heat rising behind her eyes. She turned off the TV. "Biased media," she muttered, as if my bruised wrists were imaginary. Jordan entered, Ty half nodded, his phone buzzing on the counter. He caught her expression and paused. "What happened?" "Nothing," she said quickly. Just noise." He studied her, then set the phone aside. "Maya, you don't have to pretend. This is hard. On both of us." Her voice cracked. "I didn't ask for any of this, Jordan. I didn't want to be the center of some national debate. I just wanted to go to my appointment." He pulled her into his arms, pressing his chin to her hair. "I know, and I hate that you're carrying the weight of it. But we'll get through it. Together." The strain, however, began to show. At her next prenatal visit, her doctor frowned at the blood pressure reading. "Higher than last time," Dr. Patel murmured. "Stress is likely a factor. You need rest, Maya. Real rest. No news, no hearings, no rallies." Maya managed a hollow laugh. Easier said than done. Dr. Patel's gaze softened. "Your baby is strong, but you must protect yourself too. Let your husband carry the storm for a while." Meanwhile, Bridges doubled down. His attorney appeared on local talk radio, claiming Maya had antagonized the officer by questioning his orders. A few callers agreed, but most were furious. Jordan listened in his car, gripping the steering wheel. When a caller said, "If her husband hadn't shown up, who knows what that officer would have done?" Jordan's chest tightened. He couldn't shake the image of Maya pressed against cold metal, her voice pleading. That night, he drafted a statement for the Bureau, documenting every detail of that day: times, actions, words. His supervisor warned him, "Ellis, you're treading close to conflict of interest. Remember, you're not just a husband, you're an agent." Jordan's reply was sharp but steady. "I was a husband that day, and that's what saved her." At home, Maya scrolled through messages on her phone. Hundreds of strangers had written, some offering prayers, others sharing their own stories of humiliation or fear. One message stood out. "I was cuffed outside a grocery store last year, 7 months pregnant. They said I looked suspicious. I didn't fight it, I couldn't. No one believed me, but your courage gave me hope." Maya's eyes blurred. She handed the phone to Jordan. "I can't ignore it anymore. This isn't just about us." He read it, then nodded slowly. "Then maybe speaking is part of healing, but only if you choose it." The Oversight Committee delayed their decision, citing further review. The waiting frayed nerves across town. Protesters returned to the courthouse, louder than ever. Local businesses posted signs, "We stand with Maya," or in rarer cases, "Support our officers." The town had split and tension simmered in every corner. Amanda Torres, the journalist, visited Maya again. "People are listening, Maya, but Bridges' defenders are painting you as fragile, emotional. If you stay silent now, their version will harden." Maya rubbed her belly. "And if I speak, they'll say I'm exploiting my pregnancy." "Maybe," Amanda admitted, "but the truth cuts louder than spin. And you have the truth." That evening, Maya sat with Jordan on the porch, the sky painted in streaks of orange and violet. She pressed her hands against her belly, feeling the steady thump of life inside. "I'm scared, Jordan," she whispered. "Not just for me, for our baby, for what kind of world we're bringing them into." He looked at her, his eyes fierce but tender. "Then we fight to make it better. That's what this is. Not politics, not headlines, just us protecting what matters." Maya leaned against him, tears slipping down her cheeks. The noise of protests in the distance carried faintly on the breeze, but here, in this moment, she found calm. Late that night, Jordan's phone buzzed again. It was his supervisor. "Ellis, Internal Affairs just widened their investigation. Bridges isn't the only one on their radar. This could shake the entire department." Jordan hung up, staring out the window at the quiet street. For the first time, he realized this wasn't just about one officer or one arrest. It was about exposing a system. Behind him, Maya stirred in her sleep, one hand resting protectively on her belly. Jordan whispered to himself, "For her. For them. For all of us." By the end of the week, the case had grown beyond Brookdale. National outlets picked it up, framing it as another test of accountability in small-town policing. Cable news panels dissected every frame of the video, clips of Maya's soft but firm testimony at the oversight hearing replayed on loop. At Carter Memorial Hospital, nurses whispered about it between rounds. At the grocery store, strangers stopped Jordan and Maya with quiet words of support, or occasionally, hostile mutters about troublemakers. Their lives were no longer private. Then came the call Maya had dreaded, an invitation to appear on Morning America Live. The host, Kelly Doyle, was famous for her sympathetic interviews, but also for asking blunt questions. Maya stared at the email on Jordan's laptop, her breath shallow. A live interview? Millions of people, Jordan. What if I stumble? What if I say the wrong thing? Jordan rested a hand on her shoulder. Then you'll still be telling the truth. And that's stronger than perfection. The FBI wasn't thrilled. Jordan's supervisor warned him again. Your wife goes live on national TV. This case becomes political rocket fuel. You need to think carefully. Jordan's reply was clipped. With respect, sir, she already is the case. The cameras don't decide that. Bridges did. The supervisor sighed but didn't argue. The night before the interview, Maya couldn't sleep. She sat at the kitchen table, a mug of chamomile untouched, her notebook open. She wrote fragments. Respect should not depend on who you marry. I am not a threat. I am a mother-to-be. No one deserves to be treated as invisible. Jordan found her there past midnight. Speechwriting? He teased gently. She smiled faintly. Maybe. Or maybe just reminding myself why this matters. He kissed her forehead. Whatever words you use, they'll be enough. The studio lights were blinding. Maya shifted in her chair, one hand resting on her belly, the other gripping Jordan's for reassurance just before cameras rolled. Kelly Doyle leaned forward, voice warm. Maya, thank you for being here. Millions have seen the video of your arrest, but I want them to hear it in your words. What happened that day? Maya took a breath, steady despite the pounding of her heart. I parked for a prenatal appointment. Officer Bridges approached me, demanded my license. I complied. But when I asked why, he escalated. Before I knew it, he had me in cuffs against the hood of my car. I told him I was pregnant. I told him I wasn't resisting. He didn't stop. Her voice trembled, but she pressed on. I thought of my baby, that was all. I thought, please, let us be okay. The audience in the studio was silent, the weight of her words filling the space. Kelly nodded gently. And then your husband arrived. Maya's lips curved faintly. Yes, he showed his badge, but here's the truth. I shouldn't have needed a husband with a badge to be treated with dignity. The clip exploded online. Hashtags trended. #respect. For Maya and pregnancy is not probable cause. Celebrities retweeted her words. Advocacy groups reached out. Overnight, Maya had become not just a victim, but a voice. At home, Jordan scrolled through messages pouring in. He showed her one from a mother in Detroit. I was cuffed 6 months pregnant for shoplifting I didn't do. Charges dropped, but scars remain. You spoke for me today. Thank you. Maya's throat tightened. If my story helps even one woman feel less alone, maybe it's worth all this. But Bridges' defenders fought back harder. A smear article appeared online, claiming Maya had exaggerated her pregnancy complications. Anonymous sources insisted she talked back to the officer. Conspiracy blogs accused her of staging the encounter for publicity. Jordan slammed his fist against the desk when he saw it. They'll invent anything to tear you down. Maya placed a hand on his arm. Then we keep telling the truth. Lies fade, truth doesn't. Meanwhile, internal affairs uncovered troubling details. Bridges had 3 prior complaints for excessive force, all quietly dismissed. In one case, he'd handcuffed a teenage boy for loitering. In another, he detained a Latina mother outside a mall for acting suspicious. The IA investigator confided in Jordan off the record. This isn't isolated. Bridges has a pattern. If your wife hadn't been the one, someone else would have been soon. Jordan's jaw clenched. Then it's time for everyone to see the pattern. At dinner that night, Maya asked softly, "Do you think justice will actually come?" Jordan looked at her, then at the swell of her belly where their child shifted restlessly. His voice was steady. "I think justice is coming. Because you lit a fire they can't put out." Maya smiled faintly, exhaustion etched in her face. "Then let's make sure it burns for more than just us." Outside, the noise of chants from another protest drifted faintly through their window. Maya closed her eyes and whispered a prayer. For herself, for her baby, for every woman whose voice had been silenced. And for the first time, she felt the storm was beginning to turn. The leak came on a Wednesday morning, delivered not by officials, but by a whistleblower. Amanda Torres, the local journalist, published an exclusive internal affairs report. Bridges accused of repeated misconduct. The article detailed 3 prior complaints: the teenage boy cuffed for loitering, the Latina mother detained for shopping while acting suspicious, and a black delivery driver held at gunpoint for reaching too quickly for his ID. Each complaint had been dismissed as unsubstantiated. Amanda's piece ended with a chilling line. If not for a viral video, Maya Ellis might have become just another dismissed file. Brookdale erupted. On social media, the hashtag pattern of abuse trended alongside hashtag respect for Maya. Local news stations replayed interviews with the other victims, who now felt safe enough to speak. At the courthouse steps, protesters held signs, "How many more?" Not just Maya. Inside the police department, the atmosphere was poison. Officers whispered in hallways, some furious at Bridges for dragging the department into disgrace, others defensive, muttering that media vultures were crucifying one of their own. The chief, Gerald McKenna, faced reporters with sweat on his brow. "These allegations are under review," he said stiffly. Officer Bridges, like any citizen, deserves due process. Few believed him. At home, Maya read Amanda's article, her stomach tight. She placed a hand on her belly, whispering, "We weren't the first. We just got seen." Jordan set down his coffee, his jaw hard. "This is bigger than one man. Bridges is the symptom. The system's the disease." Maya looked at him carefully. "And what happens when the system fights back?" Jordan's eyes softened. "Then we fight harder, but this time we're not alone." That evening, Amanda visited the Ellis home, her notepad tucked under her arm. "The public's listening, Maya, but I need more than leaked files. Will you go on record again? Speak not just for yourself, but for the others?" Maya hesitated. "I'm exhausted, Amanda. Every time I open my mouth, someone calls me a liar or worse." Amanda leaned forward. "And yet, when you speak, people listen. The boy's mother told me she felt silenced for years. Your courage gives them courage. That's why Bridges and his defenders are scared." Jordan added softly, "It's your choice. Always your choice." Maya closed her eyes. The baby shifted, a gentle kick against her ribs, and she exhaled. "Okay, but only if the others stand with me. I won't carry this alone." 2 days later, Amanda arranged it. In a small community center downtown, Maya sat at a long table beside the Latina mother, the delivery driver, and the teenager, now grown into a young man. Cameras filled the room. Maya spoke first. Her voice was calm, steady. "What happened to me was caught on video. That's why you're all here. But I'm not the only one. There are others, and they deserve to be heard." One by one, the others told their stories. The young man's voice cracked as he recalled being shoved against a wall at 16. The mother described her daughter watching in tears as she was cuffed. The driver clenched his fists as he relived the barrel of a gun inches from his chest. By the end, the room was heavy with silence. No one could deny the pattern. News clips spread fast. National anchors framed it as proof that Brookdale's crisis was systemic. Civil rights groups descended on the town, demanding accountability. The Department of Justice announced it was monitoring developments closely. Bridges, meanwhile, was placed on administrative leave. His union lawyer raged on television, calling the leaks trial by media. Bridges himself gave a short statement. "I've dedicated 20 years to public safety. These attacks are politically motivated. I won't be scapegoated." But his words rang hollow against the growing tide. At home, Maya sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket. Jordan joined her, lowering himself into the chair beside her. "You were powerful today," he said. "I was terrified," she admitted. "That's what makes it powerful." She leaned into him, exhaustion etched into her face. "Do you ever wonder if this will actually change anything? Or if it'll just be another story people forget?" Jordan's gaze was firm. "I don't wonder. I know. Because you've already changed something. People who never spoke before are speaking now. That doesn't go back in the box." Maya let out a long breath. For the first time, hope flickered stronger than fear. But across town, Bridges sat in his darkened living room, the TV muted, his badge heavy on the table. His hands trembled as he scrolled through threats online, some calling him a racist thug, others hailing him as a hero. The walls felt closer each night. "This isn't over," he muttered to himself, voice raw. "They think they can destroy me? They'll see." Back at the Ellis home, Maya wrote in her journal before bed, "The storm is bigger now, but so are the voices. I am not alone, and neither is my baby." The Department of Justice announcement hit Brookdale like a thunderclap. On the evening news, the anchor's voice was grave. "The DOJ has launched a preliminary inquiry into policing practices in Brookdale following allegations of misconduct, including the widely publicized arrest of Mrs. Maya Ellis. Investigators will review complaints, procedures, and officer training." At the Ellis home, Jordan muted the television. He and Maya exchanged a long look across the living room. "Federal eyes," he said quietly. "That's not something towns like this are used to." Maya cradled her belly, the baby kicking against her palm. "Does that mean real change?" Jordan's voice was steady. "It means they can't bury this anymore, and that terrifies them." The next morning, reporters camped outside the police department as DOJ officials arrived in dark suits. Chief McKenna gave a forced smile at the podium. "We welcome oversight," he said, though sweat beaded at his temples. "Our department has nothing to hide." Inside, officers grumbled. Some whispered about quitting. Others doubled down, muttering that outsiders don't know how hard the job is. Bridges, still on leave, refused interviews, but his lawyer thundered on local radio. "This is federal overreach. One viral video, and suddenly the entire department is on trial? Where's due process?" But outside the courthouse, protesters cheered the news. Signs waved. "Justice in Brookdale." Federal eyes see truth. Maya tried to live quietly, but the storm pressed closer every day. At the grocery store, strangers approached her, some offering prayers, others snapping photos without asking. One afternoon, a woman about her age stopped her near the produce aisle. "Maya, I wanted to say thank you. My brother was stopped by Bridges last year. He was too scared to report it. You gave us courage." Maya blinked back tears. "I'm just trying to protect my family." The woman's smile was soft but firm. "And you're protecting ours too." That night, Maya told Jordan about the encounter. Her voice wavered. "I don't want to be a symbol, but maybe I already am." Jordan kissed her hand. "You didn't choose it, but you're carrying it with more grace than anyone could." The DOJ inquiry moved quickly. Investigators interviewed past complainants, sifted through training manuals, and subpoenaed records. Amanda Torres reported every development, her headlines sharp and unrelenting. "Brookdale PD destroyed complaint files?" "Whistleblower." Officers pressured to drop investigations. Tension inside the department reached a breaking point. Chief McKenna was called before the Oversight Committee for a public session. The courthouse filled with reporters, citizens, and protesters chanting outside. Seated at the front, McKenna looked older than his years. When Ramirez, the chairwoman, asked why Bridges' prior complaints had been dismissed, McKenna stammered, There wasn't sufficient evidence. Officers' word must be trusted in the field." A committee member leaned forward. "So 4 separate complaints, all dismissed? At what point does a pattern become evidence?" McKenna's silence was damning. Cameras caught every bead of sweat, every falter in his voice. By the end of the session, even his defenders looked uneasy. At home, Maya watched the broadcast, hand pressed against her belly. "He looked cornered," she said softly. Jordan nodded. "Because he is. The walls are closing in." Maya hesitated. "But cornered animals fight hardest. What if they lash out?" Jordan's gaze was steady. "Then we'll be ready. We don't back down." 2 nights later, their doorbell rang after dark. Jordan opened it to find a man in plain clothes, one of the DOJ investigators. "Special Agent Ellis?" the man asked. "Yes. I wanted to thank your wife for her testimony. It's been pivotal. The department's culture is worse than we thought. This inquiry could lead to a consent decree, court-ordered reform." Maya stepped into the doorway, tired but resolute. "Does that mean real change?" The investigator's eyes softened. "It means Brookdale PD may never operate the same way again." But not everyone welcomed it. Bridges' supporters staged a counter-protest the next day, waving blue flags and chanting, "Support our cops!" Confrontations flared in the streets. Amanda covered the tension live. "Brookdale is divided," she reported, the crowd roaring behind her. "But one thing is certain, the eyes of the nation are fixed here now." That evening, Maya wrote in her journal, "I feel the weight growing heavier. Every headline, every protest, every stranger who whispers thank you. I didn't ask for this fight, but maybe the baby inside me will grow up in a world softened by it. Maybe that's worth every sleepless night. She set down her pen, pressing her hand to her belly as the baby stirred. Jordan leaned against the doorway, watching her quietly. "You're not alone," he said. "I know," she whispered, tears slipping free. "But sometimes it feels like I'm carrying the whole town." Jordan crossed the room, kneeling in front of her, his hands covering hers. "Then let me carry the rest. You just keep breathing for both of you. I'll carry the storm." Maya closed her eyes, letting his words wrap around her like armor. Outside, chants still echoed faintly through the night, but in that small room, the storm felt bearable. The letter came on crisp DOJ stationery, its weight heavier than paper should carry. "Mrs. Maya Ellis is requested to provide testimony before the Department of Justice inquiry into policing practices in Brookdale. Your cooperation is vital to this investigation." Maya read it twice, her pulse quickening. She set it on the kitchen table, where sunlight pooled in warm squares, though the words felt cold. Jordan skimmed it, jaw tightening. "They want you to speak in Washington." Her hand went instinctively to her belly. "In front of senators? Agents? Cameras? Jordan, I can barely breathe when strangers stop me at the grocery store." He reached for her hand. "They're asking because you matter, because your story cracked this whole thing open. But it's your choice. Always." Maya's eyes closed. She pictured the cold metal of the patrol car against her cheek, the sting of the cuffs, the baby kicking inside her in protest. She opened them again, resolve flickering beneath the fear. "If it helps stop this from happening to anyone else, then I'll go." The trip to DC was arranged quickly. The bureau handled logistics, Jordan accompanying her as both husband and agent. At the airport, travelers whispered and pointed, recognizing her face from the news. Maya kept her head down, one hand braced at her lower back, Jordan a steady presence at her side. On the flight, turbulence jolted the plane. Maya gripped the armrest. Jordan leaned close. "You've faced worse storms, Maya. This one's just in the clouds." She smiled faintly, easing her grip. The hearing room was cavernous, lined with dark wood and crowned by chandeliers. Senators sat in a semicircle, DOJ officials at long tables. Cameras loomed like unblinking eyes. When Maya was called, she rose slowly, every step deliberate. The baby shifted inside her, a reminder of both fragility and strength. She sat at the witness table, microphone adjusted to her height. The chairwoman leaned forward. "Mrs. Ellis, thank you for being here. We understand this is difficult, but your testimony is critical." Maya nodded, hands folded tightly in her lap. "Please describe what happened on November 12th. Her voice trembled at first, but steadied as she spoke. She described parking for her prenatal appointment, the officer's sudden demands, the cold press of the hood against her pregnant belly. She repeated the words she'd said that day. "I am not a threat. I am pregnant." Gasps rippled through the gallery. Cameras zoomed closer. Then she described the moment Jordan arrived, his badge raised like a shield. "If he hadn't come, I don't know what would have happened. And that's what terrifies me. Not just for me, but for every woman without someone to intervene." A senator leaned in, brows furrowed. "Mrs. Ellis, what do you want to see come from this inquiry?" Maya's throat tightened, but she forced the words through. "I want respect to be the starting point, not the reward. I want training that doesn't see a black woman as a threat before she even speaks. I want accountability that doesn't require a viral video to be believed. And I want my child to grow up in a town where dignity isn't optional." The room fell silent. Even the clicking of cameras stilled for a moment. When she finished, Jordan felt his chest swell with pride. He'd seen her at her most vulnerable, but here she sat, strong enough to move a room full of lawmakers. The chairwoman finally spoke. "Thank you, Mrs. Ellis. Your words will be entered into the record. We commend your courage." Maya exhaled, relief trembling through her. That evening, clips of her testimony spread across every network. Headlines blared, "Pregnant woman confronts senators with truth." "Respect shouldn't depend on a badge," says Maya Ellis. "From Brookdale to DC, one voice sparks reform." Messages poured in again, more than ever. Women from across the country shared their own stories of humiliation, fear, or silence. Maya read some aloud, her voice breaking. "They've all been waiting for someone to listen." Jordan pulled her close. "And you made them listen." Back in Brookdale, the ripple effect was immediate. Protesters held signs quoting her testimony. Local churches organized prayer vigils. Even some officers spoke anonymously to Amanda, admitting they'd long felt pressured to look the other way on misconduct. Chief McKenna, under growing scrutiny, held a press conference. His voice cracked as he promised sweeping reforms, though few trusted his sincerity. Bridges, meanwhile, stayed silent, his house surrounded by both reporters and counter-protesters. At home in D.C., after the hearing, Maya finally allowed herself a deep breath. She sat in the quiet of the hotel room, stroking her belly. "You felt that, didn't you?" she whispered to the baby. "The world's shaking, but maybe it's shaking in the right direction." Jordan wrapped his arms around her from behind, pressing his chin to her shoulder. "You didn't just testify, Maya. You made history." She closed her eyes, exhaustion washing over her, but for the first time since that day at the clinic, she felt not just like a survivor, but a force. Back in Brookdale, the streets buzzed with a nervous electricity. Maya's testimony had shifted the ground beneath everyone's feet. People at the diner whispered her words between bites of pie. High school civics teachers played clips in classrooms. Even church sermons touched on dignity and justice. But in the shadows of the police union hall, another conversation brewed. Bridges sat stiffly at the head of a scratched oak table, his lawyer and a handful of supporters around him. "They're making me the villain," Bridges muttered, jaw tight. "One incident blown out of proportion and suddenly I'm the face of racism in America." His lawyer leaned in. "The DOJ's inquiry has teeth. If we don't get ahead of this, you'll lose your badge, and more. What do you suggest? We reclaim the narrative, paint her as manipulative, her husband as abusing his position. Spin this as a political play, not misconduct. People will believe it if we're loud enough." Bridges clenched his fists. He hated how small he felt, cornered by forces larger than him. But the thought of surrendering, of admitting fault, burned worse. "Then let's fight." The counterattack came swiftly. An anonymous blog posted alleged records questioning Maya's credibility, claims she exaggerated her stress, that she sought attention by dramatizing her pregnancy. Within hours, the story spread to conspiracy forums. Talk radio hosts picked it up. "Is this all just a setup?" one asked. "Did the FBI husband use his badge to intimidate a local cop?" Jordan slammed his laptop shut when he read it. "Lies," he growled. "All of it." Maya sat quietly on the couch, one hand rubbing slow circles over her belly. "Jordan, this is what they do. They can't erase the truth, so they smear it." His eyes burned. "And I won't let them touch you." Amanda Torres called within the hour. "I've traced the blog back to a shell account connected to the union's PR consultant. They're desperate, Maya. That means you're winning. But it also means they'll get uglier." Maya exhaled shakily. "How much more can we take?" Amanda's voice softened. "You've already taken enough, but if you stay the course, the truth will drown the noise." Meanwhile, the DOJ doubled its pressure. Investigators uncovered evidence of complaint files quietly shredded in the past 2 years. The revelation made headlines. Brookdale PD destroyed records during investigations. The police chief, McKenna, was summoned again. This time, the cameras caught him visibly shaken, his voice faltering as he denied knowledge. "We follow protocol," he began, only to be cut off by reporters shouting, "Who ordered the shredding?" It was clear his grip on the department was slipping. At home, Maya felt the weight pressing heavier each day. Her doctor warned again, "Stress raises your blood pressure. You need boundaries. No more scrolling headlines at midnight. No more reading every cruel comment." Maya nodded, though she knew it was easier said than done. Every insult cut deep. Every accusation stung. But every supportive message, every woman who wrote, "You spoke for me," gave her strength. One night, Jordan found her crying softly in the nursery they'd started preparing. He knelt beside her. "What is it?" She stroked the crib rail. "I want our child to have a world where people don't have to fight this hard just to be believed. But what if nothing changes?" Jordan took her hands. "Then we keep fighting. Until it does. For them, for us, for everyone watching." The next morning, Amanda published another bombshell article. This time, it wasn't just about Bridges. It named other officers, patterns of misconduct, evidence of cover-ups. The town gasped. Brookdale PD wasn't just flawed, it was rotten at its core. The protests swelled. Crowds doubled outside the courthouse, chanting louder, longer. Signs quoted Maya's testimony, "Respect shouldn't depend on a badge." That night, Maya sat at the kitchen table, pen in hand, journal open. The storm is louder now, But storms don't last forever. They break. And when they break, the air clears. Maybe we're close. Maybe closer than we think. She set the pen down and closed her eyes, listening to the baby's rhythmic kicks inside her. A quiet strength rose through the exhaustion. Jordan watched from the doorway, pride etched in his face. He thought of all the storms he'd weathered as an agent, but none compared to this fight. Because this one wasn't about missions or orders, it was about family, justice, and the future pressing steadily beneath Maya's skin. And he knew, no matter how fierce the counterattack, they wouldn't break. The city of Brookdale no longer felt like the sleepy town it had once been. National media vans lined Main Street, cameras aimed at the courthouse where the DOJ inquiry deepened. The chants outside grew louder every day, their voices echoing into every home, every shop, every corner. Inside the courthouse, rows of chairs were filled with journalists scribbling notes, families watching nervously, and activists holding signs silently on their laps. The proceedings had become more than a case about bridges. They had become a referendum on the system itself. Maya sat at the front, hands folded over her stomach, steady despite the storm. Jordan stayed close, his posture protective, his eyes scanning every movement in the room. The DOJ investigator began with a calm voice. "We have uncovered significant evidence of misconduct, shredded records, falsified reports, and intimidation of complainants. This pattern did not happen in isolation. It reflects an institutional failure." The words struck like thunder. Gasps rippled through the audience. Bridges shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his lawyer whispering furiously in his ear. Outside, the protest swelled into a wave. The crowd doubled again, carrying signs that read, "No more silence and justice for all." What had begun as outrage over one woman's humiliation had evolved into a collective roar against corruption. But with sighs came tension. A group of counter-protesters arrived, waving flags and shouting insults. Police formed barriers, their faces grim, as chants turned into shouting matches. Jordan glanced at the courthouse windows, watching the swelling tide. If this escalates, someone could get hurt. Maya touched his hand. "Then we stand firm, no matter how loud it gets." That evening, the smear campaign against Maya grew darker. Online posts accused her of fabricating the pregnancy complications, of leveraging sympathy to destroy a good officer's career. Trolls filled comment sections with venom. Maya read none of it. She had promised herself she wouldn't, but Jordan couldn't help it. He saw every cruel line, every lie. His fists clenched until his knuckles whitened. He turned to her one night. "I want to call in favors. Expose every single person behind this garbage." Maya shook her head gently. "No, if we play their game, we lose. The truth is stronger than their noise. We just have to hold on." Meanwhile, Amanda Torres wasn't holding back. Her latest article tore through Brookdale like wildfire. She published leaked emails showing how officers coordinated to cover up misconduct. Screenshots revealed Bridges mocking complainants, bragging about cleaning house when citizens dared to file grievances. The headline blared across the nation, "Brookdale PD complicit in systematic abuse, leaks show." Within hours, major networks ran the story. By nightfall, the governor himself announced a state-level review of the department. The strain weighed heavily on Maya's body. At her next appointment, the doctor frowned at her chart. "Your blood pressure is still too high. You must rest, Mrs. Johnson. This fight is important, but your health and your child's must come first." Maya nodded, though guilt gnawed at her. Every hour she rested felt like abandoning the people chanting her name outside. Yet every kick she felt inside reminded her that the fight wasn't just for now, it was for the world her child would inherit. That night, Jordan found her writing in her journal again. He read over her shoulder. "They try to bury us in lies, but seeds grow in the dirt, and truth grows stronger than their hate." He kissed her hair. "You're the strongest person I've ever known." Back at the police union hall, Bridges was unraveling. The leaks had destroyed his defenses. His lawyer's voice was tight. "They have enough to indict. If you don't cooperate, you could face prison." Bridges slammed his fist on the table. "I won't go down alone." His eyes burned with resentment. "If I fall, I'm dragging others with me." The room fell silent. It was clear desperation had taken root. The next morning, Maya walked into the courthouse again. The crowd cheered as she stepped through the doors, their chants lifting her spirits despite the exhaustion weighing down her shoulders. Inside, the investigator addressed the court once more. "This is bigger than one officer. This is about restoring faith in the law. Justice isn't optional. It is the foundation of democracy. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. For the first time since that terrifying day on the roadside, she sensed the tide turning. The system that had once seemed indifferent was now bending toward truth. Jordan squeezed her hand, whispering, "We're almost there." And in that moment, she believed it. The morning sun poured over Brookdale as the courthouse prepared for another tense day. Outside, the protests had grown so massive that police barricades barely contained them. Chants reverberated through the streets. "Justice for Maya, justice for all." Inside, the atmosphere was electric. Every seat was taken, journalists shoulder to shoulder, their cameras pointed at the front. Families of victims filled the rows, their faces etched with anticipation. At the center, Maya sat quietly, hands resting on her stomach, Jordan by her side, radiating quiet strength. But all eyes drifted toward Officer Bridges as he entered. His uniform was wrinkled, his face red from lack of sleep, and his jaw clenched tight. He looked less like the proud officer he once pretended to be, and more like a man cornered by his own lies. The DOJ investigator wasted no time. "New evidence has surfaced," she announced, holding up a file. "This contains internal memos where Officer Bridges instructed subordinates to teach complainers a lesson. It also includes directives to suppress evidence of misconduct." Gasps filled the courtroom. The judge's gavel slammed. "Order!" Bridges leapt to his feet. "This is a witch hunt. You people don't understand what it takes to police these streets." His voice cracked, desperation dripping from every syllable. The judge's eyes narrowed. "Officer, sit down or be removed from this courtroom." But Bridges wasn't listening. His rage boiled over. "You're all against me, against law and order. That woman!" He jabbed a finger at Maya, his face contorted. "She's nothing but a liar exploiting her pregnancy for sympathy." The room erupted in outrage. Reporters scribbled furiously, cameras flashed, and murmurs rose like a tidal wave. Jordan surged to his feet, fists clenched, but Maya gripped his arm, whispering, "Don't, he's already losing." Outside, the crowd caught wind of Bridges' outburst through live broadcasts. The chants grew louder, more defiant. Counter-protesters, emboldened, hurled insults across the barricades. Suddenly, a scuffle broke out. Shouts turned into shoves, and the police rushed in. Tear gas canisters were prepared. The once peaceful rally teetered on the edge of chaos. Jordan, glancing out the window, stiffened. This could spiral out of control fast. Maya took a deep breath. "Then we remind them what this is really about. Not his hate, not their lies, but truth." Back inside, the DOJ investigator leaned into the microphone. "This isn't about Officer Bridges alone. This is about accountability. It's about whether this department serves the people or itself." Bridges' lawyer, sweating profusely, tugged at his client's sleeve. But Bridges shoved him off, shouting, "You think you can break me? You think you can bury me? I'll expose every one of you." His voice cracked into something unhinged. The judge finally snapped. "Bailiff, remove him." As officers moved to escort Bridges out, he thrashed, yelling, "This isn't over. You'll all regret this." His voice echoed even after the heavy courtroom doors slammed shut. The silence left behind was deafening. The judge cleared his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen, let it be noted that this courtroom is a place of justice, not theatrics. The evidence presented will speak for itself." Maya inhaled slowly, her body trembling with the weight of it all. She turned to Jordan, whispering, "He's crumbling. The truth is finally breaking through." Jordan squeezed her hand. "And you're the reason why." That night, the protests outside swelled again. Bridges' meltdown played on every news channel, his rant replayed in slow motion, his accusations dissected by commentators. Amanda Torres's headline captured the moment perfectly. "Officer unravels in courtroom meltdown. Systemic corruption exposed." The article went viral, picked up by national outlets. Overnight, Brookdale became a symbol of a reckoning much larger than itself, but Maya's body paid the price. Stress coursed through her veins, her blood pressure climbing again. Jordan rushed her to the hospital when she doubled over in pain, fear etched across his face. The doctor shook his head. "She needs absolute rest. Any more strain could endanger both mother and child." Jordan sat at her bedside, his hands trembling. "You've carried too much, Maya. Let me shoulder it now." Maya looked at him, eyes weary yet fierce. "This fight isn't just mine, it's ours, and we're closer to the end than ever." At the same moment, Bridges sat alone in a holding cell, his career in ruins, his name synonymous with disgrace. Yet instead of remorse, bitterness consumed him. His mutterings grew darker, more erratic. If I burn, they all burn with me. But outside those walls, a different story was unfolding. One of resilience, truth, and a community refusing to bow. And at the heart of it all, Maya held on, her unborn child's heartbeat steady against the storm. The courthouse square looked like a battlefield the next morning. Protesters had returned in greater numbers than ever. Families with strollers, veterans holding flags, clergy standing arm in arm with students. Opposite them, counter-protesters shouted slogans, their voices sharp, their flags snapping in the wind. Police stood in the middle, a line of uniforms trying to contain the storm. The air buzzed with tension so thick it felt like static before lightning. Maya and Jordan arrived just as chance escalated into shoving. From inside the car, Maya saw the crowd's faces twisted with rage and fear. She pressed a hand to her belly, whispering to the baby, "Stay calm, we'll get through this." Jordan's jaw clenched as he parked. "It's boiling over. If one spark hits..." Before he could finish, a bottle flew across the barricade, shattering near an officer's boots. Shouts erupted. The police raised shields. Protesters screamed back. The line between peace and chaos blurred in an instant. Inside the courthouse, the DOJ investigator called an emergency recess. She approached Jordan in the hallway. "Special Agent Ellis, we may need bureau assistance. Brookdale PD can't control this without escalating." Jordan nodded grimly. "If the FBI steps in, the message is clear. This isn't just a local matter anymore." Maya overheard, her pulse quickening. "Jordan, won't that make things worse?" He turned to her, steady. "Sometimes the only way to stop a fire is to bring water from outside. Local leadership has lost control." Back outside, the chants grew louder, faces pressed against barricades. Amanda Torres was live on camera, voice urgent. "Tensions are at a breaking point here in Brookdale. What began as peaceful protest risks erupting into violence. The world is watching." Suddenly, the courthouse doors opened. Maya, against every warning from her doctor and husband, stepped forward onto the steps. The crowd gasped, then hushed. Her voice trembled at first, amplified by borrowed megaphone. "I know you're angry. I am angry too. But violence is what they expect from us. Don't give them that." The crowd quieted, straining to hear. "I was cuffed for nothing but existing. That was wrong. But if we answer hate with hate, we lose what makes us right. This fight is for justice, for dignity, for the world our children will inherit. Don't let them twist it." Her words cut through the tension like rain on dry earth. Protesters lowered their fists. Even some counter-protesters faltered, eyes fixed on her. Jordan watched, pride and fear battling in his chest. He whispered to the DOJ investigator, "That's my wife." But Bridges wasn't done. From inside his holding cell, he demanded airtime. His lawyer arranged a live interview with a sympathetic talk show. Bridges's face filled TV screens that evening. "This is persecution," he growled. "I kept this town safe for 20 years, and now I'm crucified because a woman cried on camera. She's married to an FBI agent. They're using me to push an agenda." His words dripped venom, but his eyes were wild, unfocused. Commentators noted it immediately. "He looks unstable. This is desperation." The smear backfired. Polls showed public sympathy for Maya surging even higher. At home, Maya collapsed onto the couch, exhausted. Her doctor's warning echoed in her head. "Stress could endanger both of you." Jordan sat beside her, guilt weighing heavy. "You shouldn't have gone out there today," he said quietly. She turned to him, eyes fierce but weary. "If I didn't, someone would have gotten hurt. Sometimes words are stronger than barricades." He sighed, brushing a hand over her hair. "You've carried more than anyone should, but promise me, when this ends, you'll rest. Really rest." Maya smiled faintly. "When justice comes, then I'll rest." The FBI formally joined the inquiry the next day. Their presence sent shockwaves through Brookdale. Agents in dark suits interviewed officers, secured files, and escorted DOJ officials through the station. For the first time, the department's secrets were pried open by hands it couldn't control. Amanda reported live. The FBI's involvement underscores how deeply this scandal has shaken trust in Brookdale PD. What began with one arrest now threatens to topple an entire system of abuse. Late that night, Jordan received a call. His supervisor's voice was tight. "We've uncovered communications suggesting Bridges isn't acting alone. There are officers sympathetic to him, planning ways to undermine the inquiry. It could get ugly. Jordan hung up, his chest heavy. He looked over at Maya, asleep with a hand on her belly. He whispered to himself, "Whatever's coming, I'll shield you from it. Both of you." Outside, chants still echoed faintly in the distance. The storm was far from over, but cracks had appeared in the walls that once seemed unbreakable. The FBI's presence rattled Brookdale like an earthquake. Agents in dark suits moved quietly through the police department, collecting hard drives, seizing personnel files, interviewing officers one by one. The old culture of silence cracked under their gaze. Jordan sat in on briefings, jaw tight as new revelations poured in. Bridges wasn't a lone wolf. He was the centerpiece of a clique inside the department, a handful of officers who called themselves the Shield. They shared group texts mocking citizens, celebrated excessive force, and promised to watch each other's backs no matter what. One message stood out: "Ellis thinks she can shame us. She has no idea how far this goes." Jordan's blood ran cold reading it. This wasn't just corruption, it was collusion, and it had Maya's name written into its threats. That evening, he came home later than usual, exhaustion etched into every line of his face. Maya was curled up on the couch, her belly rising and falling as the baby kicked steadily. She looked up when he entered. "You found something," she said softly. Jordan hesitated, then sat beside her, taking her hand. "It's bigger than Bridges. There's a network of officers protecting each other, covering up patterns for years, and they're angry. Angrier now that the FBI's here." Her heart pounded. Angry enough to what? Jordan's gaze was steady but grave. Angry enough to lash out. Against the inquiry. Against us. The next day, the tension in town reached a fever pitch. Protests swelled again, but this time the counter-protesters arrived in greater numbers, emboldened by Bridges' rants. Shouts turned into pushes, and soon police sirens wailed as officers tried to keep the sides apart. Amanda Torres reported live, her voice strained over the noise. "What we're seeing here is no longer just a call for justice. It's a community tearing at its own seams." Inside the courthouse, Maya prepared to attend another hearing. Her doctor had warned her again. Rest. Stress is dangerous at this stage. But Maya refused to stay home. "If they're still fighting, then so am I," she told Jordan. As they entered the chamber, all eyes turned to her. She could feel the weight of expectation pressing down, but also the warmth of solidarity. Families of other victims nodded at her, their silent support bolstering her resolve. The DOJ investigator opened the session with a bombshell. "We have uncovered substantial evidence that misconduct in Brookdale PD was not limited to one officer. It was systemic, organized, and actively protected." Gasps filled the room. The investigator continued. "The group calling themselves the Shield obstructed justice, destroyed files, and intimidated complainants. Their communications, recovered by the FBI, leave no doubt." Maya glanced at Jordan, his expression hard as stone. She whispered, "It's out now. They can't hide anymore." But Bridges' allies weren't silent. His lawyer stormed to the microphones outside afterward. "This is federal overreach. These so-called investigators are fabricating evidence to smear good men who risk their lives daily. Mrs. Ellis and her FBI husband are manipulating this town for their own agenda." The counter-protesters roared in agreement. Amanda's report, however, told a different story. The Shield's messages are not fabrications. They are documented, time-stamped, and verified. What's unraveling here is not a smear. It's the truth. That night, back at home, Maya doubled over suddenly, gasping. Jordan was at her side in an instant. "What is it?" Her hand pressed hard against her belly. Pain, sharp and strong. Fear spiked in Jordan's chest. He scooped her into his arms and rushed her to the hospital. Dr. Patel met them in the emergency ward, calm but urgent. "Contractions, too early but not uncommon under extreme stress. We'll monitor closely." Maya lay back on the bed, sweat beading on her forehead. She clutched Jordan's hand. "It's my fault. I've pushed too hard." Jordan shook his head fiercely. "No, this isn't your fault. This is what they've done, and I swear I won't let them take anything more from us." Hours passed in tense quiet. Monitors beeped steadily, nurses checked vitals, and Jordan never let go of her hand. The contractions slowed with medication, but the warning was clear. Dr. Patel returned, voice firm. "Mrs. Ellis, you must avoid stress at all costs. Your baby is strong, but the body can only endure so much. If this continues, we risk early labor." Maya's eyes filled with tears. "How can I rest when the storm is still raging?" Jordan leaned close, pressing his forehead to hers. Because your health is the greatest act of resistance now. They want to break you, Maya. Don't let them. That night, as Maya rested at last, Jordan stepped into the hallway, phone in hand. He called his supervisor. This isn't just misconduct, it's conspiracy. Bridges and the Shield aren't done. They're trying to turn this town inside out. We need to dismantle them completely. His supervisor's reply was sharp. Then we move fast. But Ellis, keep your family safe first. Brookdale is replaceable. Maya and your child are not. Jordan's grip tightened on the phone. Understood. He returned to Maya's bedside, watching her sleep, one hand still resting protectively on her belly. The storm outside grew louder by the day, but here, in this room, was his entire world. And he knew, whatever came next, he would shield it with everything he had. The morning after Maya's hospital scare, Brookdale awoke to another round of headlines. Across television screens and front pages, one phrase repeated like a drumbeat: the Shield exposed. FBI agents had executed search warrants overnight, hauling boxes of documents and computers out of the police department. Reporters captured the scene: rows of evidence bags carried into unmarked vans, officers in uniform staring at the ground, their faces pale. Amanda Torres stood outside the station, microphone in hand. Sources tell us multiple officers face suspension pending investigation. What began with one woman's arrest has now pulled back the curtain on a culture of misconduct spanning years. The Shield's days are numbered. At the Ellis home, Jordan sat at the kitchen table scrolling through reports. His phone buzzed nonstop with updates from the bureau. Maya, pale but steady, sipped tea across from him. They're cracking down fast, he said, eyes still on the screen. Warrants, suspensions, interviews, the Shield is cornered. Maya set her cup down, voice quiet but firm. Cornered animals are the most dangerous, don't forget that. Jordan looked up, meeting her gaze. I haven't. Meanwhile, Bridges simmered in his holding cell, his fury boiling over into paranoia. His lawyer tried to reassure him. We'll challenge the evidence, claim bias. But Bridges barely listened. His hands shook, his muttering constant. They think they can bury me, but I know things. About McKenna, about the mayor, about Ellis and his wife. If I go down, I'll burn them all. The guard on duty exchanged a nervous glance with another. Bridges's rants had grown darker, more unhinged by the day. That afternoon, the DOJ inquiry reconvened. This time, instead of defensive denials, the chamber heard something new: confessions. One officer, pale and trembling, admitted to shredding complaints under pressure. Another acknowledged being ordered to back up Bridges no matter what. Their words landed like hammer strikes. Maya listened from the gallery, her hand clasped in Jordan's. Each confession cut deep but also lifted a weight. They're finally breaking, she whispered. Jordan nodded, jaw tight. And once the cracks start, the whole wall comes down. But the fight wasn't over. Outside the courthouse, protests flared again. This time, violence nearly erupted when counter-protesters hurled bottles and insults at Maya's supporters. Police in riot gear moved in, the air thick with threat. Amanda reported live, voice strained. The scene is volatile. It's clear the battle over truth in Brookdale isn't confined to the courtroom. Jordan's instincts screamed at him to pull Maya back, shield her from the chaos. But when she saw the fear in the crowd, the families clutching each other, she shook her head. If I hide now, they'll think they won. Jordan squeezed her shoulder. Then we face it, together. Back home, Maya's exhaustion deepened. Her doctor's warnings echoed louder than ever. Avoid stress. Early labor is a real risk. Yet her phone buzzed nonstop. Reporters requesting interviews, advocacy groups pleading for her to speak again. She sat on the couch, one hand on her belly, staring at the phone. Jordan knelt in front of her. You don't owe the world your health, he said softly. You've already done more than anyone should have to. Maya's eyes glistened. But if I stop now, what message does that send? That they scared me silent? That I'm weak? Jordan took her hands in his. It sends the message that you're human, that justice doesn't demand you sacrifice everything. Let the Bureau, the DOJ, the protesters carry it for a while. You've already lit the flame. Her voice cracked. And if the flame dies without me? It won't, he said firmly, because it's bigger than you now, bigger than us. The next morning, Jordan received a classified briefing. The Shield's communications revealed a chilling plan. Intimidation of witnesses, leaking false stories, even talk of making examples out of critics. He hung up, fury cold in his veins. He looked at Maya resting on the couch, eyes closed, her hand protectively on her stomach. In that moment, he made a vow to himself. They will not touch her. They will not touch our child. Not while I breathe. That evening, Amanda published another bombshell. Headline: The Shield plotted retaliation against critics. Screenshots of group texts spread online, each one uglier than the last. Public outrage erupted louder than ever. On television, anchors declared it a turning point. Brookdale PD is in freefall, one said. The Shield has collapsed under its own corruption. At home, Maya read the article, tears spilling down her cheeks. She whispered to her unborn child, "We're almost there. Almost to the other side." Jordan sat beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "The walls are falling, Maya, and when they do, justice will stand in their place." The Shield was collapsing piece by piece, but Bridges refused to accept it. In his holding cell, he paced like a caged animal, his mind churning with rage. His lawyer begged him to stay quiet, but Bridges demanded a phone call. When the call was granted, he leaned into the receiver, voice low and venomous. "You think you can erase me? You'll regret this. I still have allies, and I still have a voice." He didn't know that the line was monitored. Every word became evidence. The next morning, Maya woke to Jordan's soft touch on her shoulder. His expression was grave. "They intercepted a message," he said. "Bridges is planning something. They think he'll try to make a spectacle, maybe a statement to the press, maybe worse." Maya sat up slowly, her belly heavy with the weight of new life. What more can he do? His lies are unraveling. Jordan's voice was steady, but she heard the undercurrent of fear. Desperate men do desperate things, and we have to be ready. By noon, the courthouse steps swarmed with reporters. Word had leaked that Bridges would be transferred to a federal facility, and crowds gathered to watch. Protesters waved signs, counter-protesters shouted, and police stood guard with tense faces. Maya and Jordan arrived quietly, escorted through a side entrance. But even from inside, Maya could hear the roar of the crowd outside. Her chest tightened. It feels like the whole world is out there, waiting for someone to explode. Jordan took her hand. "Then we hold steady. They can shout all they want, but they can't drown out the truth." Inside the hearing room, the DOJ investigator presented the newest evidence: intercepted calls, plans to retaliate against witnesses, and proof that Bridges coordinated with his allies even after suspension. "This is not just misconduct," she declared. "It is conspiracy. It is obstruction of justice. It is a betrayal of the very oath sworn to protect and serve." Gasps filled the room. Cameras zoomed in on every detail. Bridges, brought in under heavy guard, sat rigid, his face flushed with fury. He suddenly lunged forward, pointing at Maya across the room. "You!" he bellowed. "You ruined me! You and your FBI husband! You think this is justice? This is revenge!" The courtroom erupted into chaos. Reporters shouted, guards restrained him, and the judge's gavel thundered for order. Maya's body went cold, but her voice, though trembling, rose clear enough for those around her to hear. "No, Bridges. This is accountability, and you can't stop it." The moment went viral within hours. Clips of Bridges raging contrasted with Maya's quiet resolve. Commentators replayed it on loop. One anchor summed it up. "It was the clearest picture yet. A man unraveling under the weight of his own corruption and a woman standing firm despite everything." But the stress weighed heavily on Maya's body. That evening, back at the hospital for monitoring, Dr. Patel frowned at her chart. "Your contractions are sporadic, but your blood pressure is climbing again. We need to keep you overnight for observation." Maya lay back against the pillows, exhaustion pressing her down. She whispered to Jordan, "I can't break now, not when it's almost over." Jordan brushed her hair back gently. "You won't break. You bend, you strain, but you don't break. That's who you are." Meanwhile, FBI agents tightened the net around the Shield. More officers confessed under pressure, turning evidence over in exchange for leniency. Names of city officials began to surface, people who had looked the other way, or worse, actively protected Bridges. Amanda's latest article hit like a hammer. Corruption reached City Hall, leaked testimony shows. Brookdale reeled. The scandal was no longer confined to the police. It spread through the entire structure of power. In her hospital bed, Maya watched the news coverage, her hand resting on her belly. She whispered softly to her unborn child, "This fight started with us, but it won't end with us. It's bigger now. It's everyone." And one day you'll know your mother stood, even when she was afraid. Jordan listened from the chair beside her, pride and love filling his chest. He thought of all the missions he had faced as an FBI agent, but none felt as important as sitting here, holding Maya's hand through the storm. That night, as Maya drifted into uneasy sleep, Jordan stepped into the hallway to take a call. His supervisor's voice was urgent. "Bridges is finished, but he's not alone. Some of his allies are panicking. We're closing in, but we need to move fast before they try something reckless." Jordan's eyes hardened. "Do whatever it takes. Just keep them away from Maya." As he hung up, he looked through the hospital window at the town bathed in flashing protest lights. Brookdale was cracking wide open, its secrets spilling out for all to see. And though the storm raged louder than ever, Jordan knew they were nearing the eye, where calm and truth would finally break through. Brookdale woke under a heavy gray sky, as if even the weather sensed the weight of the moment. By dawn, news broke that 3 more officers tied to the shield had been arrested. Their mugshots flashed across every channel, their faces pale and grim. Amanda Torres's report was blunt. "The walls are closing in. Bridges may be the face of this scandal, but his allies are falling one by one." At the hospital, Maya stirred awake, blinking at the sterile lights above her. Jordan sat beside her, still in the chair from the night before, his hand clasped around hers. He'd barely slept, his eyes fixed on the door as though guarding against invisible threats. She squeezed his hand weakly. "You look like you're carrying the whole world." He gave a weary smile. "I'd carry 2 worlds if it meant keeping you safe." Her lips curved faintly, but her gaze grew serious. "Jordan, promise me if something happens to me, you'll keep telling the truth. Don't let them bury it." His chest tightened. "Nothing's going to happen to you, Maya. Not on my watch." But outside those hospital walls, desperation brewed. In a dim bar on the edge of town, 2 officers still loyal to Bridges whispered over cheap whiskey. "They're coming for all of us," one hissed. "If we go down fighting." The other leaned closer. "I heard Bridges ranting. He says Ellis is the reason it all collapsed. The wife, the husband, both of them. If we make them look dirty, maybe we buy time." By nightfall, an anonymous tip reached a local radio host. Claims that Jordan Ellis had abused his FBI authority to frame honest cops. It spread fast, amplified by Bridges' few remaining defenders. Jordan read it on his phone, his jaw tightening. "They're trying to smear me now." Classic desperation. Maya, sitting up against her pillows, touched his arm. "They can't fight the evidence forever. Lies burn out. Truth lasts." The next day, the courthouse filled again. Bridges, escorted under heavy guard, looked more unhinged than ever. His hair was disheveled, his eyes darting wildly. As cameras clicked, he shouted, "It's all lies! The FBI planted it all! Ellis is the real criminal!" The judge ordered him silenced, but the damage was done. His meltdown became the story of the day. Clips flooded social media. A disgraced officer unraveling while the truth towered around him. Amanda's headline captured it. "Bridges blames FBI, public sees desperation." At the hospital, Maya watched the coverage with a deep sigh. Her doctor entered, concern etched across his face. "You've stabilized for now," Dr. Patel said, "but every surge of stress risks early labor. You need quiet, Mrs. Ellis." Maya glanced at the television showing the chaos in Brookdale. "Quiet isn't exactly an option right now." Dr. Patel's voice softened. "Then lean on the people around you. You've done enough for 10 lifetimes." That evening, Jordan received another classified call. His supervisor's tone was urgent. "We intercepted chatter. Bridges' allies talked about planting false evidence, maybe even staging an incident to undermine the inquiry. We're tightening security, but you and your wife are targets." Jordan's jaw locked. "Understood. No one gets near her, not a soul." He hung up and looked at Maya resting, one hand on her belly, the other holding his. His heart clenched at the sight. She shouldn't be in a war zone, he thought, but she's the reason this war is being fought at all. Later that night, Amanda visited the hospital with news. The governor's office just announced a full state audit of Brookdale PD. This isn't just about Bridges anymore. The whole system is on trial. Maya's eyes glistened. Then maybe it was worth it. All the pain, all the fear. Amanda leaned closer, her voice steady. "It was worth it because you refused to be silent. You gave others permission to speak." But as the women spoke quietly, Jordan's phone buzzed again. Another alert from the bureau. He stepped into the hallway to read it. Possible sabotage attempt planned for tomorrow's hearing. Targets may include witnesses and DOJ officials. Be vigilant. Jordan's chest tightened. He closed his eyes, steadying his breath. The fight was reaching its climax. Bridges and his allies were cornered, but that made them all the more dangerous. He returned to the room, masking his worry with a calm smile. Maya didn't need more weight on her shoulders tonight. She needed rest, safety, hope. So he sat beside her, stroking her hand gently until her breathing slowed, her body finally surrendering to sleep. But inside, his resolve hardened like steel. Tomorrow could bring chaos. Tomorrow could bring danger. And tomorrow, he would be ready. The courthouse square was unusually tense that morning. Clouds hung low, heavy with the threat of rain, mirroring the unease rippling through the crowd. Word had spread that Bridges' allies were planning something, though no one knew what. FBI agents in dark jackets blended into the crowd, scanning faces, earpieces buzzing with updates. Jordan stood at the steps, his eyes sharp, every instinct on high alert. Inside the hospital room across town, Maya watched live coverage on TV. She longed to be there, to stand with the families chanting for justice, but her doctor's warnings rang in her ears. Rest, protect the baby, let others carry the fight. She placed her hand on her belly, whispering, "Your father's out there. He'll keep us safe." At the courthouse, the DOJ investigator stepped up to the podium. Her voice carried through microphones and broadcast vans. "Today we present our recommendation that Brookdale Police Department be placed under federal oversight pending restructuring." Applause erupted from protesters, cheers rising like thunder. But the joy didn't last long. From the back of the crowd, shouts pierced the air. A handful of men surged forward, their faces hidden by caps and scarves. One hurled a smoke bomb toward the barricade, the hiss and plume igniting panic. "Move, move, move!" an agent barked into his radio. Chaos rippled outward as protesters scattered, coughing in the acrid cloud. Jordan sprinted forward, pulling a child away from the smoke as agents tackled one of the masked men. Another tried to slip through the barricade, clutching what looked like a duffel bag. Jordan intercepted him, knocking the bag to the ground. Inside, stacks of forged documents meant to smear Maya and the DOJ investigator. The man snarled, "You'll regret this," as agents dragged him away. News cameras caught everything. Within minutes, broadcasts showed the attempted sabotage live across the nation. Anchors declared, "Desperate allies of Bridges attempt to disrupt proceedings." Amanda Torres's voice cut through the noise in her live report. What we just witnessed was not protest. It was sabotage. And it proves how far corruption is willing to go to silence the truth. Back at the hospital, Maya clutched the bedsheets, her heart pounding as she watched the footage. The smoke, the chaos, Jordan pulling the child to safety, every second ratcheted her pulse higher. Her chest tightened, breath shallow. A nurse rushed in, alarmed at the monitor's readings. "Maya, you need to calm down. The stress is spiking your blood pressure again." Tears welled in her eyes. "He's out there in the middle of it. What if?" The nurse gripped her shoulders gently. "He's trained for this. You need to focus on your baby." Deep breaths, in and out. Maya obeyed, forcing air into her lungs until the dizziness receded. She closed her eyes, whispering to herself, "He's safe. He has to be." At the courthouse, the DOJ investigator reclaimed the podium once the smoke cleared. Her voice was steady, but the steel in it was unmistakable. Attempts to intimidate or sabotage this inquiry will not succeed. Today, more than ever, we affirm our commitment. Justice in Brookdale will prevail. The crowd roared its approval. The chaos had backfired. Instead of weakening the inquiry, it strengthened its resolve. Jordan exhaled slowly, scanning the dispersing crowd. He pulled out his phone and sent a quick message to Maya. "Safe, always." That evening, federal officials held a press conference. The FBI released evidence linking the saboteurs directly to Bridges' allies, their group texts plotting one last shot to derail the circus. Charges of conspiracy and obstruction were announced. Reporters peppered officials with questions. Does this prove the department itself is complicit? Will the city face criminal charges too? The scandal's reach seemed to grow with every passing hour. Amanda's headline captured the mood. "Sabotage fails, justice pushes forward." At the hospital, Jordan finally arrived, his clothes still carrying the faint scent of smoke. Maya sat up, relief flooding her face. "You're okay," she whispered, tears streaming as he wrapped her in his arms. "I told you," he murmured against her hair. "Safe, always." She pressed her forehead to his chest, the baby kicking gently between them. "I saw everything on the news. Jordan, it could have gone so wrong." "But it didn't," he said firmly, "because the truth doesn't break that easily. Not anymore." Later that night, Maya opened her journal, her handwriting shaky but determined. "They tried to silence us again. Smoke, lies, fear, but smoke clears and lies collapse. Today proved that even in chaos, truth holds steady. Maybe storms don't just destroy, maybe they clear the air." She set the pen down, placing her hand on her belly. Jordan watched her quietly, pride and love etched across his tired face. The storm wasn't over yet, but the worst of the darkness was breaking. And for the first time, Maya felt that the light was close enough to reach. The morning after the sabotage attempt, Brookdale was quiet in a way that felt unnatural, like the town itself was holding its breath. The streets still bore the scars of chaos, discarded signs, smoke stains on the courthouse steps, but there was also a new calm, the kind that follows a storm. In Washington, the DOJ announced its findings at a press conference broadcast nationwide. The lead investigator spoke firmly, her words clear. "The evidence leaves no room for doubt. Systemic misconduct within the Brookdale Police Department has violated the public's trust. Effective immediately, the department will be placed under federal oversight. Multiple officers face criminal charges, including conspiracy, obstruction, and civil rights violations." Gasps rippled through the assembled press. Reporters fired questions, their voices overlapping. But the conclusion was unmistakable. The system that had failed Maya was being dismantled piece by piece. Amanda Torres's live update came seconds later. "This is unprecedented. Federal oversight of a small-town police department is rare, but the depth of corruption made it unavoidable. Brookdale's reckoning is here." At the hospital, Maya sat upright in bed, watching the broadcast on the small television. Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered, "It's happening. Real change." Jordan, seated beside her, nodded slowly. His expression was proud but guarded. "It's a victory, yes, but victories come with backlash. We can't let our guard down yet." She reached for his hand, her voice firm despite the exhaustion in her body. "We've come too far to stop now. Whatever comes next, we face it together." Meanwhile, Bridges was transferred under tight security to a federal holding facility. Shackled and flanked by marshals, he shouted at reporters as cameras flashed, "This is political theater. I was protecting this town. They're crucifying me because I wouldn't bow to lies." But his voice cracked and his wild eyes betrayed the truth. He was a man unraveling, his power stripped away. The footage played on every news channel contrasted with Maya's calm testimony from weeks earlier. The contrast was stark: rage versus resilience, collapse versus courage. In Brookdale, protests continued, but now they carried a different energy. The chants were no longer just of outrage, they were of triumph, of solidarity. Signs read, "Justice won't be silenced," and "Thank you, Maya." Amanda, weaving through the crowd with her microphone, captured the mood. For many here, this feels like a turning point, but residents know the work isn't finished. Oversight is the beginning, not the end. Back in the hospital room, Maya felt the baby kick sharply. She winced, pressing her hand to her belly. Jordan leaned forward, alarm flashing in his eyes. "You okay?" She exhaled slowly. "He's strong, maybe stronger than me." Jordan smiled faintly, resting a hand over hers. "He takes after his mother." Dr. Patel entered then, his tone gentle but serious. "Mrs. Ellis, your blood pressure is stabilizing, but stress remains a concern. With everything happening outside, I strongly recommend limiting media exposure and focusing on rest." Maya nodded, though she knew rest would never come easily. Her life had become inseparable from the headlines. That evening, Jordan received a call from his supervisor. He stepped into the hallway to answer, his voice low. "Yes, I understand. No, she can't know yet." When he returned, Maya studied his face. "What is it?" He hesitated, then sat beside her. "Some of Bridges' allies are still at large. They're scared, and scared men do reckless things. The Bureau is watching them closely, but I need you to focus on one thing: keeping yourself and the baby safe." Her eyes narrowed. "You're asking me to stay silent when everything I've fought for is finally breaking open?" "I'm asking you to live to see it finished," Jordan replied softly. Later that night, Maya opened her journal again. Her handwriting wavered, but her words were steady. "The walls are falling. The men who humiliated me will answer for what they've done. But this fight was never just mine. It belongs to every voice raised, every truth told. If tomorrow brings more storms, so be it. I've learned storms don't last, they clear the air. She set the pen down and rested her hand over her belly. We're almost there, she whispered to her child. Almost. Jordan, watching her from the chair, felt a mix of pride and fear. He knew the inquiry was nearing its end, but he also knew the final chapter could be the most dangerous yet. The reckoning had come, but reckoning always carried a cost. The courthouse was overflowing. Reporters packed the aisles, their cameras already live, broadcasting to a nation waiting for closure. Families of victims filled the benches, their faces tense with anticipation. Outside, protesters gathered shoulder to shoulder, chanting, not with rage this time, but with hope. Jordan guided Maya carefully into the room, one hand at her back. She wore a loose dress that hid the strain of the last weeks, but the exhaustion in her eyes was clear. Still, she stood tall, refusing to be hidden away for the final moment. The judge entered, and the room fell silent. His gavel struck once, echoing like a drumbeat. This court is reconvened for final judgment. The DOJ investigator rose. Your Honor, after exhaustive inquiry and testimony, we recommend full federal oversight of Brookdale Police Department, immediate termination of implicated officers, and criminal prosecution of those who obstructed justice, including Officer Bridges. A murmur rippled through the room. All eyes turned to Bridges, shackled at the defense table, his face twisted in defiance. He muttered curses under his breath, his lawyer whispering desperately for him to stay silent. The judge's voice was steady, firm. The evidence presented is overwhelming. The Shield operated as a criminal enterprise within a sworn law enforcement body. Such betrayal cannot stand in a society governed by law. Officer Bridges, you are hereby stripped of your badge and sentenced to federal prison pending trial for conspiracy and obstruction of justice. Gasps and cheers erupted in equal measure. The gavel slammed again. Order! Bridges shot to his feet, veins bulging in his neck. This is a sham. I was the law in this town. You'll regret. Guards restrained him before he could finish, dragging him toward the exit. His shouts faded as the heavy doors slammed shut. The silence left behind was deafening, but it didn't last. Applause broke out, cautious at first, then growing into a roar that shook the chamber. Maya felt tears spill down her cheeks. She turned to Jordan, whispering, "It's over. Really over." He squeezed her hand, pride and relief flooding his voice. "Because of you." But Maya shook her head. "Because of everyone. I just spoke what so many were too afraid to say." Outside the courthouse, the chants grew louder. "Justice! Justice!" The crowd surged with emotion, strangers embracing, families holding one another. For the first time in weeks, Brookdale felt less divided, less broken. Amanda Torres delivered her live report, her voice clear over the noise. Today marks a historic moment. The people of Brookdale demanded accountability, and the system answered. This verdict will ripple far beyond this town. Back at the hospital later that day, Maya lay resting, the weight of weeks of tension finally lifting. The baby kicked rhythmically, as if sensing the shift in the air. Dr. Patel smiled as he checked her chart. "You've stabilized. Now for the first time, I think you might actually rest." Maya let out a shaky laugh. "Rest sounds like a miracle." Jordan leaned close, brushing a hand through her hair. "You earned it. Every bit of it." That evening, as dusk settled over Brookdale, Maya opened her journal one last time. Justice isn't a moment, it's a road. Today we took a step further down it. Bridges is gone, but the fight for dignity continues. For every voice silenced, for every truth buried, there are others ready to rise. And now I believe more than ever, storms don't last. They clear the sky for what comes next. She set the pen down, resting both hands over her belly. Jordan watched her, his heart full, knowing this was not just the end of a trial, it was the beginning of something new. The next morning, the town woke to headlines. Justice in Brookdale. Federal oversight ordered, Bridges sentenced. Pregnant woman's testimony sparks nationwide movement. Maya's face appeared on front pages across the country, not as a victim, but as a symbol of courage. That night, as Jordan tucked her into bed, he whispered, "You didn't just survive, Maya. You changed everything." She smiled faintly, eyes heavy with sleep. "No, we did." And as the world outside wrestled with reform, inside their quiet home, Hope finally settled like a long-awaited dawn.